Hello, this is Danae Media Productions, and we are going to take a look at a couple pieces of art this morning. So let's get started. This first picture right here is supposed to have been a stylized representation of RADMILLLA CODY, who used to be one of our Miss Navajo Nations in times past. If you take a look behind her, you have a stylized sun face which overlaps a wedding basket in the background. Wedding baskets are usually indicative of these steps, which are male versions of the triangles. You have the arrows that are in white, basically the negative portion of the drawing, and the seven sisters as stars. The symbolism isn't so high in this to where they actually mean a whole lot. It's supposed to be something that just works with a background when it comes to highlighting this character. You have the Pendleton blanket here. Everything is shaded in with black and white graphite. You have her hair in a bun. It's one of the earlier drawings that we did, and you could sort of tell because a lot of the techniques are pretty standard. I want to say beginner sort of thing. Shading, gradients, flat gradients. The hair, it's just something that you could tell is probably a little bit dated, but it was one of our first forays into stylizing something like a human being. Not exactly comic art, but not exactly realistic either. Speaking of comic art, when you think about comic art, when you look at comic books today in the movies and entertainment and film, they've gotten a really big resurgence, and that's in large part due to characters such as Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Avengers. These sorts of things, when you look at their graphic novel format, the cover is always heavily worked on. A lot of detail, a lot of good colors, a lot of excellent inking. It's supposed to stand out and grab your attention. On the inside, however, you have a lot of very simple drawings. It's really more of a matter of making deadlines than it is trying to make things look good. So you have two examples. This is basically a very detailed, excellent use of blacks and cross-hatching figure on the left, which would be a teenage boy, maybe a young man, who is in the middle of, I want to say, a war party. And on the right, you have just the outlines, maybe just minimal shading with blacks. And this would go directly to the colorist, who would then be able to make it pop. But you're seeing two representations of how the graphic novel industry kind of works. This would be another example of, say, a cover, because it's very detailed. In lieu of just doing a straight outline on the background characters, we're going to take them with full shading and tones. So you have straight black here, which is meant to sort of separate this background from the main character here. The hair falls in line with being cross-hatched on this side. You have minimal cross-hatching, very light feathering done here. Because it's a female, you don't really want to make it that heavy. You make a female's shadows heavy on the face, she tends to look older. On this side, that's not really a concern because he's supposed to be older. When you're doing things that have folds, like a leather jacket, pants, it's good to have an idea of where these folds come from, where the body pushes the fabric in certain directions. We did a decent job with this one right here without really having too much of a reference picture, but if you can, have someone stand and model for you and take a picture of that, and then figure out what does the body do to the clothing. Certain types of fabrics will also behave in different ways. This could have used some work. The face here is not where we wanted it, and I would say this is an exaggerated perspective of the female, but it manages to work in this instance. The only difference I'm seeing is you have one where she's curved and looking at you at an angle, and this one here is a straight profile, so it sort of works, but it kind of throws you off a little bit. Sometimes when you're working on something or when you've done enough work, there comes a point where you have to consider the cost. What I mean by that is there are people who do artwork for the sheer pleasure of it and it relaxes them, and there are other people who know they can do what they put their mind to. It's like this. An easier way to look at it is this simply. This picture right here of this Atahli, medicine man, you could tell, let's zoom in a little bit more. See all these right here, this is graphite, all of it. This is actually, I believe, a straight scan of what was done. So you have the tones that tell you the shape of his cheeks. You have the pitted skin because he's getting older in age. You have some of the whiskers on the mustache. This is realism is what it's called. Let's use myself for an example. Yeah, I knew I could do this, and it's simple. I had a reference picture of a golden eagle or a bald eagle in the background. I had some more ideas for some things here, but At the end of the day, I had to sit here and consider how long it would take. I knew I'd be able to nail all of it perfectly, I just didn't know how long I was supposed to be dedicating to it. Not only that, but I screwed up early in the planning process by not leaving a border right here. It's supposed to be about a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch border, and in this case it runs directly to the edge, which is not ideal because that means I'd have to do that with everything else around here, but a border just makes it look a little more professional, like you're giving it space for the eye to focus on something. More visual art that was not finished. This type of shading is basically subtraction and adding. That's what I like to call it. So you cover certain areas which are more or less medium in tone all the way through, and you just subtract what you need for the highlights with an eraser, and you darken what you need with a pencil. This is another example of knowing exactly what you can do and not really wanting to put the time into it, because when it comes down to it, art for art's sake is good, but if you are busy and you have things going on, it's usually whether or not you're being paid for it, or if someone's asking you to do it for them, or if it's for a purpose. Case in point, I wanted to do something here that dealt with country life, city life, with buildings on this side, and then some other opposite elements, roses on a sun face, but I considered the cost, I didn't finish it. This is a great example here of longing. If you were to capture an emotion in a drawing, if somebody were to come to you and say, I want you to show me what happiness looks like, I want you to show me what sadness looks like, I want you to show me what heartbreak looks like, how would you do it? How would you convey it? For me, I felt if you were to personify the sun and the moon, and they're always being apart from each other, what if they were in love at one point? What if you could symbolize the sun with a man, the moon with a woman, and you were to draw them together, yet they're together in the drawing, but they're not together in reality, and you're going to see a constant form of longing, depression, sadness, but you also want to finish it off with some hope that they will be together again. That was our idea with this. Starts off as a very, very simple sketch, and you'd be amazed at what it turns into. You have a very beautiful woman at the bottom, which is representative of the moon right here. This is really interesting in the fact that it's basically a sun face but in reverse, and it has translucent areas which are supposed to be shaded black, which blends in with the space in the background. You have white paint that comes all the way down through here, creating a highlight area for the clouds, as you can see right here and right here. Let's zoom in a little bit. So like right here, good example, white paint. Everything here is shaded with the woman. Her highlights are also in white paint. She has feathers, and the man is the sun, and the sun is right here. And as far as the butterflies go, well, when a caterpillar crawls into his cocoon, he doesn't really know what he's going to turn into. Maybe instinct knows. Maybe he's got some type of knowledge in some deep cellular level, but on the surface, it doesn't really look like he knows what he's getting into. Maybe he thinks that's the end of his life, and to an extent it really is. That's the end of his life cycle as a caterpillar, but he crawls into a cocoon not knowing the future, not knowing if he'll ever come back out again. But weeks later, he emerges again, and this time as a butterfly. So the idea that a butterfly could represent hope, not knowing the future, not knowing if they're ever going to see each other again, but having that hope that at some point they will. And that does happen. We have solar eclipses. Very rare that it does happen, very rare that we see it fully, but it does happen. And to me, I felt like I really wanted to show what longing, what love, what insurmountable odds looked like, and at least having some hope in the middle of that. There's been a lot of drawings that we've done, artwork and paintings that we've never actually gotten the opportunity to copy or to at least take pictures of before, and that's unfortunate, but they sold immediately right after it was done. That being said, the next video we want to center around wood carvings. Maybe not the stuff that you see in the stores when you go to the trading post, but something along those lines, using soldering irons and cottonwood branches. And that'll be it for this video. Thank you for your support.